Hi friends, today I have been playing with all these fun little Valentine's type vibe of paintings, and I want to do several of these, but I want to start with, look at this cute little heart. So that's what I'm going to be playing with today. The next one will be these bleeding heart flowers, which I've never seen in person, but look at how cute those are. So we're going to do a few of those, maybe a little Valentine's heart bouquet. And how I'm going to start off is, let me get a piece of paper, and we're just going to swatch out some of our colors. So I cut up these little pieces of paper. It's 140-pound cold press, and that's what I will use to kind of swatch out, test my colors, test my values. So let's just stamp on here our swatch circles, handy dandy swatch circles. And I've got my Lang palette here. This is the Paul Rubens student grade, fantastic, under $20, or it might be just a couple dollars over. I get them on sale. When they're on sale, I buy a bunch of these, and I buy tubes to refill them. So look at all the beautiful colors. We've got lots of fun Valentine's Day colors that I'm going to use, even over here to the violets, I think are beautiful. So that's the paint I'm using today. Let me grab my brush. I'm, for the most part, going to be using an 8 round. I've got a Princeton Velvet Touch here. If you have my brush, number 8 brush, that is perfectly fine. And let's just swatch out some beautiful pinks here. I don't know if I'll use any cad yellows, but let's swatch them out anyway. All right, so I've got my pink paint here. And I do this for most paintings because it just gives me an idea how my colors are going to flow together. Let's do a cad yellow, my favorite colors together. There we go. And maybe a sap green, which is my typical go-to green. You probably have yours as well. It's kind of in between that light tree green and an olive. And that's basically going to be the colors I use. Let's see this one. I might use a tad of that one, which is the second one. It's more of a magenta. And then I'm just going to test out maybe a little cad orange. So my intention is to kind of use some of these. And the brush strokes, by the way, I'm going to be using, if you want to practice those, is going to be for these little roses, using the tip of my brush light pressure. That's going to get you those thin lines. So you can practice a few of those, just anchoring your hand, light touch, practicing those thin stroke lines. And we're going to be, for these little roses, I'm going to be using the tip of my brush, so holding my brush straight up and down, just to engage that tip. And you can use a smaller round if you like as well. And I'm just going to be drawing little half circles. I'll then be rinsing my brush, adding in some water here and there. I do want to leave white space in there, so I don't want to enclose that completely. So that's how I'm going to be creating the little roses. And then for the leaves, I'll be either doing just some dabs like that, or we can do point press, dab, point press. And that will be basically my leaves that I'm going to use, keeping this really simple. I might go wet in there with that yellow or the orange. So I want to make sure that's wet enough because I want it to be that wet in wet. And then maybe just tap that in here and there, just a touch, and we'll get that beautiful bleed. All right, let's get started on our heart. I just drew out a simple heart here. Let me grab a pen. or even a pencil. This would also be a great place to use your watercolor pencils, which I don't have handy right here, because it will kind of get rid of that line. So I'm just going to sketch out my heart here. And I'm sketching it kind of dark so that you can see. But unless you're using a watercolor pencil, that'll kind of soften and dissolve as you paint into it. I'm going to roll over it, now that you've seen it, with my kneaded eraser here, and that will just lighten those lines. To be honest, I really would have preferred to use my pencils, my watercolor pencils, that is. Sorry for that camera shake. My kneaded eraser, I just bought new ones. This one is getting a little bit old. So it's got all kinds of glitter and interesting things stuck in it. There we go. Okay. So I've got my little heart there, very light, just so I can follow a little bit of the guidelines. And what I'm going to start doing, and I may even use, I've got, one second here, I think I might just use this little fine liner. It's a number 2. It's actually a Meeden brush, but you could also use your Velvet Touch and just use light pressure on the tip, but I think I'm going to play with this one. So let's pick up some of that paint. I'm going to start with that rose color. Of course, you can use whatever pink you have. And it's about 50-50 in here. 50 water, 50 pigment. Loading my brush. And then I'm just going to start painting in some of these roses. So creating those outer lines. And I'm offsetting the line, so you don't want a perfect little lined up circular strokes for your rose. You want them to be offset a little bit. Then I'll just rinse my brush, tap it off a bit, and go in, add some water. The smaller the brush, you might not even have to tap off your brush, because it's small, so it doesn't hold that much water. So there's my first little rose. Let's do another one here. And I think I'll offset it over here. So I'm kind of thinking about composition and wanting to place my largest roses thoughtfully, so my little heart is balanced. So bringing my other larger rose here, and then I'll probably put one over here. So it's kind of like a zigzag. Wet my brush. And making sure I'm not completely filling this in though, because I want some of that white space for interest. Just like that. Now before this dries, I'm going to wet my brush, tap it off, and pick up some of that. I've got some of that cad yellow in my palette here, and I'm just going to tap in. Now the wetter your brush is, the more that's going to kind of blend and bleed. But because I'm using such a small brush, there really isn't that much on here. And then the other thing I'm going to do is go in and pick up a little darker value of that pink, meaning it's probably now 75% pigment, 25% water, and I'll just tap in to the center, because the center of the rose is a little tighter. And you could maybe add a few, kind of intuitively see where you might like some of that darker color. And there we go. We've got our first couple roses here. And now I'm going to go over to this side and create I feel like I want this a little bit bigger. Really want these to be focal points. So sorry about that. I kind of backtracked there, but I felt like I really wanted these three to stand out. Okay. Oop, that's not the red I want. I want a pinky red. Pick up some more of that Quinn rose. There we go. And let's go in here. So this zigzag, which is really interesting for the eye, and start drawing our little circles. This brush I'm using by Meeden, by the way, I've had it for a while. I don't use it too often, but it is kind of a cool little brush set. It doesn't have the numbers on it, like a number 2, or tell you really what the brush is. So if you need that in your brushes, this brush might not be the best for you. Hold on one second here. It's just going to say on it Meeden. I switched to the number 2. And now I go in just with a little bit of a damp brush. And keeping a lot of the white space in there, I'm going to go in and add some of that yellow. Let it blend. The wetter your brush is, the more that will spread. There we go. So now we've got our 3 focal point. Now I can just start going in and kind of adding in leaves and smaller little buds, maybe even lighter values. I'm going to go in, this is a bit dry, and just darken up that center a bit, because when watercolors dry, they get lighter. So sometimes that's why I work with glazes and layers so much. I don't necessarily go in and you go in with a dark color. I always start with a lighter color and then go in and use layers and such. Okay, so I'm going to start creating some more little roses around, but these will be smaller. So these are the star of my little painting here, and these little roses are kind of like the supporting actors, right? So here's another one, and I'm varying these so that some might be running off the page, just for interest, just little C shapes. There we go. And now rinse my brush, tap it off just a bit, and keep cleaning it, and just blending and softening some of those lines. If your brush is too wet, you just want it to be damp. It's just going to create a big pool of water. We just want it damp, just to help blend these lines out. There we go. And I might add in some of our yellow. Might tap that off a bit. And just touch it in and let it kind of blend. Look what a beautiful color that creates. That's why I really didn't know if I'd need that orange, because when I blend my pink and my yellow, it's going to automatically create this beautiful orange color. Okay, while those are wet, what I'm going to do is go ahead and go in with my green. Let's see, let's get a space here. I've got this palette here, and combine my sap green and my tree green, tap it off, and I'm just going to go in and start dabbing in some little leaves. I want a little bit darker than that, so I think I'll just add the tiniest bit of olive green. Tap, tap. Just dabbing my brush. Look how cute, you guys. So easy, so fun. This is like the perfect little relaxing thing you can do in the evening when you're like, I just want to play, I just want to have fun. And then I'll go back in and add in some more roses to kind of start filling in. So let's grab that smaller brush. Got that 2 here, and I'm going to create. How about if we do this? Let's go in with our cad yellow and create some roses, and then go in with the pink. Let's see what that does. So I'm thinking about placement again. I've got kind of a triangle here or a Z. I've got kind of a triangle here or a Z, and that's just an interesting composition. So I'm going to go in with these little roses, and I want to keep them little, almost like they're little buds. And then I'll go in and soften those lines up a little bit. And now go in with a little bit of pink. So we've got some coherency here with the colors, but yet these are a little bit different, and I really like that. I might even now come in with some of that orange and just tap around. Look how pretty that is. Now back into my yellow, tap, tap, tap. And let's create, so I've got one here. I'm gonna go up here. Let me turn my paper. And I think this one, I will do the full flower because that one's kind of peeking out. But I am keeping this a little bit smaller than my other roses. Tap, 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 rinse my brush so it's just damp. And now go in with some of that pink. Just tapping in. Look at that pretty, I mean, the watercolors almost do it for you. And then I'll pick up just a tiny bit of that orange. So it's got the yellow undertones, but yet it's got that pink. So everything kind of flows together. Now I might just go into the center there with a tiny bit of the pink, just to darken up my center. There we go. Look how beautiful that is. Okay. And then let's do, so we've got one here, we've got one here. I feel like I could put one down here, maybe a little tiny one. So going into the yellow and just little C strokes. So I'm guiding my viewer's eye around my painting. A little bit of the pink, just go in and tap it in. And I really like running things off of the page because I feel it's kind of interesting for people. And then I'm using some of these little dabs for a different size leaf here. Maybe this one. Just spreading those around. Look how fun that is. Isn't that pretty? It's already so pretty. So I think I'll make even a smaller little rose right here. So I'm going to use that pink again and just a tiny little, maybe like a bud. And then maybe one right here. And this I'm using quite dark paint, so probably 75% pigment, 25% water. And another one right here. So they're smaller, but they're a little darker. Now rinse my brush, tap it off, and just go in, tap it off again. And look how interesting. Just blending that out, and I may not even add in yellow or any of the other colors. I might darken the center a bit. So now I think I'll go right here. So notice the composition. My focal points, the largest ones, are in that zigzag pattern, just darkening up the centers again. And then I've got some supporting little florals here. And they are also in a zigzag. And now I'm kind of randomly putting these little flowers. I think I'll go in and add some green around them. Just kind of filling in. I don't want my painting to have too much, you know, just fully loaded with flowers. So maybe I'll put in a few of these little stems with leaves coming out, just like that. So kind of use your intuition to feel where you might want some movement. There you go. And I'm really about done. The only thing I might want to do, this might be fun, is let's grab our gold paint. So let's see, here's my gold series. I should have got this wet before we started. So I'm just gonna barely get these damp. I'm almost out. That's why I've been kind of using my other, the MABs are fantastic, but I've also been using my, where are they? I don't see them here. That's okay. My other brand, I've got Artisto, I've got all different ones. So I'm going to use my 8 round and just using the tip of the brush. I didn't want quite this much water, but that's okay, because I really want that gold paint to show up. And as you can see, this one here is the one I use for the most part. And then I'm just going to go around the edge and put a gold circle. I think that might be pretty, because I just can't stand not to have a little bit of bling going on in my paintings. And in this series, by the way, she's got several in here. Some are more translucent, which is this one that I'm using, and others are going to have a little bit more opacity to them. So you can kind of play with what you're feeling. I do need to get some more. And there we go. Look how simple, look how pretty. The only other thing I could think of would be to maybe add some little gold leaves here and there. Look how pretty that is. Because, you know, I just can't stand to leave a painting without some bling and shine and surprise. There you go. I think I'm about done. I hope you guys give this a try. I will link all my supplies below. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to have a few more really fun little Valentine ideas and make it really fun for you. Thank you for being here, everybody. I so appreciate it. If you're interested, I've got a little child's coloring book on my community page that it's a freebie, something you might just want to play with your kids or your grandkids. And then I also have a really fun coloring book I've been working on that is going to be available on Etsy for maybe $5. And it's going to have all kinds of really fun images in there for you. All right, everybody, happy painting. Most of all, have fun. Just be you. Enjoy the beautiful art that you're putting out there and sharing, and happy painting.